Thank you so much, both of you, for being here to talk about the behind the scenes on making Burnout, which was, I don't know, one of the smoothest productions I have ever been on. It was so shocking for me. But any fun memories that you want to share
Well,
from the
except for
production?
me flying overnight and missing everything and showing up halfway through. It was smooth.
Yeah, but you got there in time for the scenes with Sheetal doing this, incredible cathartic. Well, I don't know. You'll tell us, Sheetal, if how it felt, but this performance with the dance therapy room.
It did feel overall, and I know Kate, it was just like travel headaches, but I did, to Sabrina's point, think that it was a well-oiled machine in the production side of it. It didn't feel like there was a lot of fires, or I didn't see them, or I didn't feel them. So it just felt like everyone knew what they needed to do, and we went in there. Everyone was professional, we're pros, and we just got it done because we wanted to and we cared about subject matter.
I'm so glad it felt that way to you. It felt that way to me, and there weren't any hidden fires. I mean, it was shockingly
Yeah,
smooth. So
I didn't see any other.
the editing process, I will say, was harder because we were trying to hone into the comedic elements, which, like with any serious topic, really getting that pop on the comedy is can be really um a challenge. But I wanted to start just by posing this general question because it's, I think, in the zeitgeist has been since we made the project about burnout and what it is to all of us. I know what it is to me, obviously, as the driving force of the project, but I wanted to pose that question to both of you.
I mean, I'll jump in. I think for me, and I've felt it, it's not like it's an unknown to me. I feel like it's when joy even feels like a task. And the work that you do, as much as you care about it, it doesn't feel connected to purpose anymore. And I think that's when you really have to take a break and not to sound kind of Pollyanna about it, but like refill your cup to the point where you're regulated again, to the point where you can be at capacity to give. And burnout is a real thing, especially when you feel like you take 5 steps forward and then 10 steps back. And it's hard, but the work doesn't become what it needs to be unless we're all there, present and able to be our best.
Yeah, well said.
I agree. Yeah, it's really I think what you say about the disconnect with joy, it's really a very unusual and unique kind of moment or experience to have that.
Hmm. I think too, it can also feel like numb, just empty, like you were saying, like even the things that you are doing because you love them and care about them and are aligned with your values start to feel almost meaningless, but it's not, it's hard because I think some of the feelings can sound a lot like depression or depressive symptoms. So as a therapist in training, I should probably say like it's important to go um, get evaluated or get support if you're because burnout can get better with
Kate's freezing.
but depression not so much.
Kate, can you just froze for a second? You were just saying burnout can get better. Oh,
Frozen.
you're back now.
Okay. Um, Burnout can get better with rest and recuperation, and depression doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily, often needs more intervention. So they are really different. But some of the symptoms are the same, this kind of like
Hmm.
emptiness, lack of joy, just, yeah.
Just not aligned, just feeling dysregulated.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good distinction, Kate, in the sense of rest isn't the cure for depression.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very important distinction, and I think one that can be difficult for people to really make for themselves, right? And so to have some kind of professional intervention and enter dance therapy. I mean, which is, I mean, Sheetal, I always felt so not bad for you, but like I really struggled to communicate and to kind of help you because I think your role as the actor portraying burnout was so challenging because it's such an unemotive kind of experience, right? It's such a flat kind of experience. And so I wonder for you as the what was the work like trying to portray this kind of state of mind, but also the therapeutic process? What was that like for you as
You know,
the
it's so interesting that you say that you described it as in terms of a flat emotive experience when you feel burnout. And I have to say, that's not how I experienced it. I actually found myself quite energetically connected to the feelings of it, which you want it to come out a certain way, but in order to get there,
Mm,
there was a lot that I was connecting to. And I found actually the dance therapy to be really wonderful and therapeutic for all of the things that, as actors we connect to, channel, and it's such a release and a much needed release. I mean, often if you're doing your job well as an actor, you are dealing with stuff through your work. And I found it to be like another language, and I love that. And I actually I think what's nice about it is because it's so personal, there's no right or wrong. I mean, there's no right or wrong in any art, really. But it's about connecting and keeping it real for yourself. And that's what I just kept trying to focus on. And yeah, I quite enjoyed it, and it's something I would do again. I feel like it's really, and we've done versions of it in training and in classes because it's a great way to get to something. Getting in your body is so powerful. So I quite enjoyed it.
I remember after the first day of shooting, which, the first day of shooting, we started with the end. So,
Yeah.
spoiler alert for people who haven't seen it yet. At the end, Sheetal does a long, what would you call it, Sheetal?
Um, I don't know how I would describe it really because it's not even a moment. It's a bit of a transformation.
Yeah, that's a great way of
Or
putting
a
it.
journey.
Yeah. And we did so many takes because we were doing wide and medium and
Yeah.
tight and wide and medium and tight, which you do. But it was such a physical performance. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but you said something like, I really felt something, like something really happened in that process. And I never followed up with you to ask you like what really happened there. But listening to what you're saying now, I understand a little bit better, I think.
You want things to be happening. I mean, that's what you want. You're creating hopefully what feels real, and it was for me.
Yeah, I get chills in that moment every time I watch it. Every time I watch it. And so it's like if it must have been happening for you because it happened and obviously I've seen it thousands of times probably at this point. So obviously the whole project has to do with climate change, which I know I'm the person here who's worked on climate a long time. So, but if you have a perspective about like connecting climate with burnout, to me, what I think about right now is it is hard to feel like you're losing. I think that is really something that can contribute to burnout, to feel like you're not appreciated, to
Mm.
feel like you work so hard and you don't achieve what you want to achieve. I think that is probably something that, I don't know, at least I have felt in terms of climate. Because, like, for example, I've worked on heat for a long time, for like over 20 years, and it's just getting hotter. And then I feel like, well, I haven't, have I done as well as I could have on that? And I think that's hard, but then and I think too about some of the solutions for burnout. And Kate, I'm going to ask you from your therapy and training perspective about this in a moment, but for me, it's like some of the solve for being burned out and then healing from that was a shift in perspective about who I want to be in this world and what my value is, and um, seeing that in a way that I hope is more accurate than just being like it's getting hotter and I failed. Like that's a little bit simplistic, right? Like that's not taking in the whole picture. But Kate, for you, I mean, you're you're obviously a dancer, choreographer, long time your whole life, and have more recently taken on training to become a therapist. So I wonder what you now see, how you see burnout through that lens in terms of
Hmm.
really like how can people climate otherwise sustain
Hmm.
that good work that can be really quite challenging to see like your efforts, really come to what you want them to come to.
Hmm. I think in addition to that sense you said of like, am I failing or is this getting anywhere? The other thing just to back up about like what does climate change have to do with burnout? Um, what came to me with that question is really like it's an emergency, but it's an ongoing emergency. And so part of what creates burnout is when we're on this like overwork, just constant stress, constant work, and there's no break. So when there's like we can either live in cognitive dissonance and kind of separate from the emergency that climate change is creating for our planet, or if we're really present to that, then it puts us on high alert all the time. So that I think can be part of also what leads to burnout is just like there's no rest. How can I dare to take a rest when this emergency is happening? Um,
Can I add to that before
yeah.
on that note? For me, it feels like the earth is burned out. Like we've actually
Mm,
Mhm.
depleted and because for me, when we're burnt out, it's when people are taking, or so much is being extracted. That's what we've done to the earth.
mm,
I thought it was so poignant when we were in the pandemic and everyone was home. I don't know if you remember, so much of the beauty of the earth was restored because people weren't taking and it was getting a little tiny, tiny bit of rest. Do you remember how beautiful everything
yes,
was
I
and
do.
green and untouched and blue and clean and quiet? And so it has the ability to regenerate and restore like we do if you just leave it alone. So I think the earth is burned out, frankly. That to me is my connection.
Well, I love that because, we never even talked about this, but I love that you see that parallel because to me, that's really kind of the point of the project is we are not separate from the world around us, right? We are part and parcel. We are so interconnected. And if we are feeling burnt out, then we are also doing to the planet. And so solving climate change is also about solving our own, and that's your journey, right? As the lead protagonist going through this transformation to really come to some level of discovery of like, okay, healing myself is also potentially the better way to heal the planet. But Kate, were you gonna add to that?
Yeah, I think thinking about just therapeutic theories and practice. So I'm studying both dance movement therapy. I previously studied somatic movement therapy and family and couple therapy. So lots of different theories floating around in here, but a couple of things come to mind. One is about cycles of exertion and recuperation, and that recuperation is a little bit different from rest. It's about a change. And if you're thinking in a movement context, it's like people tend to think recuperation is like, okay, you go for a run and then you rest or stretch. But actually, if you are sustaining slow, held movement for a period of time, eventually that becomes incredibly exhausting and unsustainable. And the recuperation is to run, to like let yourself fling and be free, and maybe a little bit like the last dance. And so I think when we learn more about recuperation and exertion cycles, we can shift what we're doing in different ways that do allow a reset, even within a period of like ongoing effort and work. That's like the one thing that came to me. There are a couple others, but
That's so interesting. I love that. That's just, that's insight about this process that we're all engaged in, working and then recovering and then working. That's really interesting.
and
Uh,
it's so micro, right? Like you can be, I work as a teacher, so if I'm like invested in a lot of student meetings or whatever, like sometimes answering emails is recuperation, and sometimes answering emails is like the dredge of earth, and I hate it and can't stand it because what I need to do is go for a run, which people are like, that's not how is that restful? But it is because the brain gets to quiet down. So like shifting between body, mind, spirit, emotions, um, just shifting where the priority is can help. And you can be engaged in, I think, work for sustaining the planet at all of those levels, right? Physically engaged in it, mentally working on it, involved in community efforts, in your heart, you know.
I think that's a great place to end. There are so many different ways and different modalities and different realms to help protect and heal the planet. And some of them are internal and some of them are external. Thank you both so much for spending this time and sharing your experiences. And I so appreciate your brilliant work on the film. And it's so great to see you.
Thank you. Likewise. It's so nice to hear that the conversation, I mean, I wish that the conversation was over and everything was solved, frankly, but we know that that's not happening. And so it's nice that people have not stopped and see the urgency. So we will carry on.
That's right.
You both. Thank you for the invitation, Sabrina.
My pleasure.